Jai Hind, Jai Bharat, and welcome to Dev Talks. This is Aadi Thursday night, Ukraine night, talking about geopolitics of Europe, America, and a lot more. I have with me Major General Prabdeep Singh. Sir, good evening, namaskar, and welcome to the show. This is a heavy geopolitical day. There's just so much happening around the world. How do you look at things?
Yes, good evening, Adi. Good to be back again talking about Ukraine. And of course, as you mentioned, a lot of geopolitical activities which have taken place. Of course, the greatest of all is the UN General Assembly and the statements made by President Zelensky and also by the Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. And also, of course, by President Biden. So when we take a stock of all those, many interesting things come out of it. And then we have Poland, which has suddenly started showing eyes to Ukraine. And there is a kind of a disharmonious situation which is existing between once upon friends. And what is it leading to is what we're going to talk about. And I kind of feel it's a very interesting development. Sorry, it's a very interesting development which is taking place. While these two things are happening on the ground, the counteroffensive is not making much of headway, as we are all aware. Uh, yes, they are inching forward, and which they also claim that they are inching forward. It's not something that we are saying. Uh, the entire world is also of the opinion that the counteroffensive hasn't been that successful as it was deemed to have been. And after all, you know, it's been today is the 575th day of this war. And as far as the counteroffensive is concerned, it started on the 4th of June and still it's lingering on. Not much has been gained. Uh, I mean, it is shameful to say that it's about 2-3 square kilometers a week is what the Ukrainians claim that to be. But at the same time, the Russians also are, capturing areas in the northeast and the north towards Kharkiv, and I think they are taking in more territory because that quantum of territory in terms of square kilometer is not coming out. Then another interesting thing which happened was six deputy defense ministers got sacked, and their major proponent Hannah, she was also kind of she's the one who used to be the spokesman of all this. She was the most active spokesperson on behalf of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine, and she too has been fired. So when you look at it, the defense minister getting fired, the deputy defense minister is getting fired. I think the entire Ministry of Defense has been fired, and what is left is really one doesn't really know as to where this counteroffensive is heading. Then another interesting incident, of course, and not an incident happening, which happened was that Survokin was sighted in
Africa,
where
Algeria.
in Africa, in Libya. So our predictions again have come kind of true. I had suggested about 3-4 weeks back when we were talking about Prigozhin and the Wagner group, that Sorokin, when he was kind of taken off, he may be made responsible for the Wagner group. And lo and behold, we find him in Africa. Uh, so, so in a way, our reading was not very wrong. The Wagner group has also become very active once again in both in Ukraine as also in Africa.
Yes.
Something very interesting you all would like to hear about is that the Ukrainian armed forces personnel have been sighted in Sudan and targeting the Wagner groups. So the Ukrainian war is not yet is kind of spreading against the Russians, not only on home ground but also in Africa. Now, this is something which I haven't construed. It's been spoken about by the CNN, and this is an investigation by the CNN, and they found that the Wagner troops are being targeted by Ukrainian armed forces physically present in Sudan. And this is something coming out of CNN, a special report. So when you look at all this, where are we headed? Is the question. With the happenings in the UN General Assembly, and which was kind of totally dominated by Ukraine, and President Zelensky has made some scathing remarks against Russia, against the UN as such, and then of course the Poland. So we're going to talk about as to where are we headed. Uh, yeah,
Sir, you've brought about two, three things which I want to kind of take up first. One is the this is one thing very interesting, that whenever Zelensky has to go somewhere, these guys claim we made headway, captured two, three villages, and ye wo photographs start coming in online and everything like that. All that stuff happens, which is very interesting. Now, what will happen when he comes back? The villages will be re-given back again. What I am kind of wanting to hint at is about the manpower shortage in Ukraine. Eh, that is coming to be now at a headway, because all the reports that I'm reading is telling me that the videos that we see of these grab and go operations are, it used to be one a day, now they're like 10 a day, 15 a day. So the quantum is increasing, and I personally think that the manpower is running short. What's your opinion? And he's asked for people to be coming back from the Europeans. Will the Europeans give the manpower?
no, it's not going to happen. You see, this is a realization which should dawn upon I dawn upon President Zelensky in particular. Now, whatever said and done, you need manpower and you need equipment. Unfortunately, he's only harping about equipment. He's only harping about finances, and he's talking about money and all that, aid, and so where's the manpower? And the manpower that he's got is actually antagonizing a whole lot of them. No Ukrainian citizen wants to fight this war. The number of surrenders taking place is also not funny. You pick up a guy from a street and give him a gun and say, go and fight. I mean, if he wanted to fight, he would have voluntarily fought. And he would have come forward to save his country and fight for his country. Then he would be ready to die, and he would be ready to fight till the end. But when you pick up a guy from the street and you make him fight, trust you me, he's an unwilling soldier, and an unwilling soldier is of no use in a battlefield. So at the first instance, he's going to surrender, and that is what is happening. There's a lot of surrenders taking place, and with the kind of firepower the Russians are using, life is being made quite miserable for all the soldiers who are now, concentrated in small areas. When you look at the Zaporozhye, area, a lot of armed force, Ukrainian brigades have been kind of, are being pumped into a particular area. Obviously, when the density of troops increases, the casualties are also going to occur in large numbers. Yesterday's casualties are around 500 plus in a day. So not funny. 575, if I'm not wrong. So if this is the kind of casualties which the Ukrainians are going to take on themselves, where's the manpower coming from? If you think that all those who've gone abroad or run away from Ukraine, if I may say so, or have been sensible enough to get away from Ukraine, those guys are not going to come back. If you think that people, the governments of wherever these gentlemen are, you say from Germany or from Poland or anywhere, if these guys are going to round up the Ukrainians and tell them to go and fight, go back, I'm afraid that's not going to happen. So manpower is going to be extremely, extremely critical. We had spoken about women being, conscripted.
Yeah.
So if all that the time is running out for them, or I would say time and manpower is running out. Of equipment will not run out, and equipment, the United States and the West will continue to pour in, because after all their aim is to prolong this war and kind of tire out Russia, and cause maximum damage to Russia and try and break its economy and trying to break its will, which unfortunately not going to happen. So let's see, because the war is going nowhere, the battle is going nowhere. A couple of weeks left for the rains and the winters to set in,
I mean,
and
so
yeah, please.
see, there is one thing that I'm noticing is that this realization that what you just mentioned to us is coming out pretty hardcore. I mean, like, काफी सारे लोग now people have started talking about this, that there's a problem. We are not getting anywhere, except of obviously the neocon faction, which is not talking about this at all. But the other guys, the media started talking about it. There are murmurs coming out here and there and stuff like that. So the knowledge that Ukraine is not doing well is well about. Even the narrative from these guys is like, yeah, yeah, we will, it is taking time, it is this, it is that. Russians have built very good defenses and all that stuff. So is there somewhere a realization that, yeah, the counteroffensive is not going anywhere? We need to plan a new phase of the war. And is that where the attackums come into place? He's wanting to now long range attacks.
No, you see, I do not blame Ukraine for what it's asking for. Now, it's a major handicap. It's a major handicap with Ukraine, that is air defense and long range weapons. Now, if he wants to hit deep and he wants to, I mean, if he wants to fight a battle, he needs all that. Because as of today, uh, they are fighting a war with a hand tied behind their back. When I say that, they're fighting without any air cover, whether it is in terms of F-16s or whatever aircraft they have,
Whatever.
MiG-29s.
Hmm.
Yeah, uh, they don't have much left of those MiG-29s. They're looking at F-16s, and how many F-16s are going to come by is another question. Second is, uh, Russia is Russia is a huge nation. It's a powerful nation. It's a powerful army. They are raining and raining missiles, and they need that kind of air defense. So what he is asking for is legit. If I look at if I look at it from the Ukrainian point of view, he's looking at this ATCMS, that long range weapons. Obviously, he wants to hit in deep. He doesn't want to fight because he's not looking at contact warfare, and I keep harping upon it. He's looking at the non-contact part of it. The contact warfare, as it is going on, and it is an everyday struggle. It's the meat grinder. It is bombardment, counter bombardment, small counter attack, local counter attacks. There have been no deliberate counter attacks as of now. These are all local counter attacks which take place. So they haven't been able to gather that kind of critical mass together to punch in that hole and drive through. So that kind of a critical mass they have not been able to get together. They could have only got it together if they had a lot of air defense. So they haven't got it. So what he's asking for it is absolutely legit. Now the question is, how much can the West provide, and for how long can the West provide? Now you can't have air defense and Patriot missiles being missile systems being deployed in all major cities. You can't have uh, they're expensive pieces of equipment. They cannot be given to the degree that they require. And the Ukrainians are using them like as if they're just toys, because something which you get free of cost, you tend to overuse it and misuse it, and this is precisely what is happening. And the tactics is also changed. Initially they let loose a few uh, missiles along with some uh, these drones, and then all these air defense measures will take off. So there'll be a huge kind of you know counter missiles being fired, and after they've been used, then they let loose the second salvo, and the second salvo is the one which is effective. So these kind of drills have been developed, and this is what causes damage. So as far as asking for equipment, Zelensky is absolutely right what he's asking for, and I don't blame him for it. uh, it is a major handicap on his part. But where's the manpower? Where's the training? Where is the maintenance part of it? Where is the lifeline? I mean, there's communications. So a whole lot of things. Where is the
Yeah.
coordination? Fighting a war is not an easy thing. I mean, it has to be coordinated, and that is something which seems to be totally lacking as far as the Ukrainians are concerned. This is where I think the NATO has either failed. Alternatively, NATO has asked them to do this, and the Ukrainians are not abiding by their training and abiding by their methodology. And we
I
do
don't know,
understand
sir.
there is a conflict.
I have a question for you. I mean, I'm not a this thing. I don't know how NATO training works, but I'm sure because you've spent time in the United Nations, you've spoken to these guys. So they trained in like 10 countries in some 40 different bases. Uh, are all the SOPs for each country the same? I mean,
Yeah, yeah. NATO,
there are no country specific twists
no,
and turns and
no. When you talk of NATO, they do have a very defined charter and a defined methodology and a defined method of operation. But unfortunately, you see, when they looked at all this, uh, as we've spoken earlier, they had only few brigades. That is, they had only 6 brigades earlier, all across the Eastern Europe front, which were readily available for a fight. And they were like one brigade in Poland, one in Latvia, one in, I'm just naming random, one in Romania, Hungary, these kind of brigades, Germany. So, and those particular brigades have been trained on similar lines with the similar
okay,
pieces of equipment.
okay. Mm,
Now they've increased the number. I think they've made it to 12 or so, and
mm,
up to
mm.
3 division worth or 4 division worth. Uh, so they're kind of improving, and they're enhancing their manpower and the equipment as the NATO part of it. Now this is in addition to what the country specific armies are, right? Now when you look at a country specific army that is trained on its own war fighting doctrines, they are not the ones which are training under NATO. It is the NATO brigades, whatever they are called, readiness brigades. Those are the ones which are available, and they are on a common training schedule. That's how it is. Yeah.
So let's come to my, I
Yeah.
mean, topic of the star highlight of the night, where Poland says Poland is threatening Ukraine. I mean, and literally Duda's words were, "What? You cannot save a drowning man, and because some drowning men will make you drown with them."
Yeah. So this is something, haven't we been talking of trifurcation of Europe, of Ukraine?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, in the entire scheme of things, we have over a period of time understood that Poland will one day willy nilly walk into Ukraine and take its, what do you call,
Lviv, Lvov.
what is traditional areas, if I may just put it, traditional areas which are Polish speaking areas. So that's in the western part of Ukraine towards north and northwest. So that part, we are kind of convinced that someday that's going to happen. What is the aim behind it? A, when you talk of tribalization, Poland takes back its own territory, and it uh, starts to govern Polish-speaking regions. One, two. This area is absorbed as a part of Poland. Three, the moment this is absorbed as a part of Poland, NATO forces can be stationed that many kilometers ahead. inside Ukraine.
Hmm.
So earlier,
Okay.
now they're on Poland-Ukraine border, uh, which is the current border. But moment that Western Ukraine is taken, these guys are going to be coming in about 60, 70, or maybe 100 odd kilometers deeper into Ukrainian territory. So that since that's part of Ukraine, NATO forces can be deployed. So what has happened is NATO is coming closer to Russia. You get the point. So Russia has come closer. Correction. NATO has come closer to Russia because Poland is a NATO country, and now this will be Polish territory, and so they can deploy closer, about 100 odd kilometers closer to Russia. Now, good idea. But how do you implement this good idea? You need an excuse.
That's what I'm kind of, my confused face is exactly that.
So you need an excuse. Now, how do you build an excuse? Well, in my opinion, that building of the narrative has just started. The building of that particular narrative towards that ultimate end has already started. And this has started with a grain deal. This has started with now making a statement that thank you very much. We're not giving you any weapons. We want to, uh, improve make our armies more modern. We want to improve our way. We want to modernize. So in a way, in effect, what they have done is they've given away whatever was redundant to them, whatever was old, not required. They've given to Ukraine with whatever some $21 billion worth of aid has been provided by Poland. No, what happens in turn? So they modernize. Poland modernizes, has a modern army, is closer to Russia. But again, as I'm repeating it, the building of the narrative to step into Ukrainian territory has commenced. And we shall soon see escalation on Polish Ukrainian border, and someday they will just walk in. And that
Escalation
is,
in the sense now, just hang on, sir.
yeah,
Escalation is with Russia or is Poland and Ukraine?
escalation. I'm talking about Poland and Ukraine.
Holy.
Poland and Ukraine. I want to walk into your territory. I need an excuse. Now, whether it is a Polish mind or whether it is the CIA mind, I really do not know. But it is definitely some mind.
Is that the reason why there was a today? I think Sky News or somebody was put out an article saying that US failed to push Zelensky into negotiations with Russia. Were they trying to kind of push him together with Lavrov, get a conversation going, something? कुछ तो हो जाए यार, because नहीं तो गए.
You see that outwardly they are not pushing because to the world they want to show that they are on all support to Ukraine. Ukraine also knows heart in heart that, I mean, it's a very brave front that the president of Ukraine is putting up and trying to show that he's the savior of Europe, and trying to say that if you cannot protect me and you cannot help me, then tomorrow I'm so sorry, Russia is going to come and invade you also. So that's the kind of a threat that is giving. Heart in heart, they all know it's all over. Now, how much can you blackmail the entire world is towards your own side is an acumen he's trying to kind of put across. Well, it's not going to happen. Countries are all very fed up of the refugees. There's a strain on the economy. There's a strain on the militaries. There's a strain on the reserves. There's strain on the energy. So everything is under strain in Europe. And Europe is facing a major crisis. And that's all courtesy of the Ukraine war.
I
And
mean,
to, yeah,
the statements today, Annalena Baerbock said that not everything Ukraine says we agree with. Uh, you know, last week we discussed about Antony Blinken being there.
Yeah,
Then the sideways escalation, which I mean, last week also I asked you about this lateral escalation, sir. We had this short, crisp sort of a war happening in Karabakh. I mean, what? Just
and it's
done.
over today. Ceasefire.
What is this?
Yeah,
Is this like, lateral
you know,
escalation also? This
you see, they're trying. I'll tell you what. The basic aim being is they are trying to ensure that the Russia's attention is not fully on Ukraine. So whatever are the troubled spots, they want those spots to again kind of escalate so Russian attention gets divided. That's the prime thing. Trouble him as much as possible and wherever you can. So these spots are coming about all over. When it comes to what's happening in Africa, it's primarily this. What's happening? What happened now is just this. But at the same time, there are sane forces who are saying, yeah, enough is enough. Let's have some peace in the world. Today, what is happening in the UN General Assembly is something very disheartening, if I may just put it. Nobody spoke of peace.
no,
Joe Biden spoke about escalation,
yeah,
supporting Ukraine to the last Ukrainian. Again, I'm just adding this.
paraphrasing, yeah.
Uh, yeah. So uh, Zelensky was also talking about you got to support me to fight Russia. He was talking about removing veto powers of Russia. Whereas it should have been the other way around, where people, should have been talking peace. Guys, we've come together and let's talk peace. What are the ways that we can de-escalate? That should have been the topic of discussion. But I'm afraid the United Nations, as of today, has failed
Complete
to do
failure.
that. They're not
Absolutely, sir.
talking about peace. They're talking about a, they're saying that this aggressor will continue to cause even more problems if you do not control him and if you do not impose more sanctions and don't kick him out and don't take his veto powers, etc. This is terrible. We are sitting in an organization which is going to supposed to be meant for peace, promoting peace in the world and development in the world, and there we are talking about continuing a particular war.
Yeah. In that
Whereas the
same,
yeah, the agenda should have been uh, how do we de-escalate this war to everybody's advantage so that there is peace in the rest in the world. So I'm quite disappointed at this at the moment. I don't know what they're going to do that tomorrow, or in the second day. It's a 6 day long thing. So let's see as to what happens. But unfortunately, today was not very encouraging.
that once, sir. Secondly, I mean, Anthony Blinken gave, and I think I sent you that video also. I actually went through that lecture's readout. He's talking about we need to challenge both of them together, Russia and China.
Yeah, he's talking. Yeah,
I mean,
he's talking about both the fronts. Two front
he
war.
wants to go into a two-front war.
Now, they're actually, God knows what their aim is, because as he did mention in that particular thing, as far as Ukraine is concerned, it's a land-air battle, and whereas when you look at Taiwan, it's a sea-based battle, sea and air combination. So you want to counter both Russia and China in one go. Now, this is also a strategy for a simple reason that you don't want the two of them to get together. Okay, so that is why you want to create trouble in the Taiwan's, on the Taiwan front also, so that China is distracted. and is not there to help Russia, and Russia is not there to help China. So these guys remain busy into kind of two fronts. Now, do you have the capacity? Is the question. Does the world have the capacity? Is the question. What will it lead to? Uh, Definitely, it's going to lead to a kind of a World War III scenario. So these are dangerous propositions. While strategically, yes, but as far as peace, dangerous for peace in the world is what I may just put it that way. So it's quite, I
Strange.
mean, if you strange at the same time, because war is something which is being promoted today.
Exactly. I think, yeah.
It's being promoted, and peace is not being talked about. And all those who want to talk peace, they are being taken to those Russia should first vacate, and then we will talk. It has to be first. There has to be a ceasefire, and then followed by talks, and then you negotiate in the talks. That's how it works. It doesn't work. You agree, but I will not agree. You agree on my terms. No, it cannot happen. It doesn't happen because uh, while one may be called as an aggressor, but the root cause of the aggression also has to be understood. And both parties have got concerns, so they need to have a ceasefire. They need to have, once there is a ceasefire, they need to hold talks. Until such time the talks are being brokered, peace has to be maintained. Whether you want to bring in United Nations peacekeeping forces, you want to get some kind of force in between, you want to have a buffer zone in between, whatever you want to say, whatever you want to call it, there has to be monitoring of peace, there has to be maintenance of peace. And such situations have existed all over the world. So it's nothing very strange. It's not something new. Unfortunately, this model is not being applied and not being, while it may be talked about, but nobody's thinking in terms of implementing this. Yeah.
I mean, it's quite amazing that we are literally, uh, if you see the reception that he got also, uh, the reception has not been warm. Previously, it was lava Ukraine or whatever they scream at each other. They were
Yes.
doing all that when he came to the US last time. There were parades and this and that and all that nonsense. This time he's been treated like just anybody else. You saw the guy sitting there. He was evidently pissed off, aggressive. I mean, he was not in, especially when Biden was also speaking, he was looking here and there, what's happening here and stuff like that. What do you think they're telling him, sir?
No, they're just trying to tell him you're one of you just one of the many. You have a concern, you come to voice a concern, go ahead and speak your mind. We will listen to you, and do, at the end of it, do what we want to do. I mean, he's come all the way to the United States, and his demand remains the same. You're talking about F-16s, and you're talking about eight times or whatever they call it, and that's what it. I mean, he's talking about some 325 million being given in aid now, and the as it is, the United States is still toying with the idea of those 24 billion, which was proposed by President Biden. So that thing is not coming forth. He was just given 1 billion a couple of weeks back, and
Yeah,
now
2 weeks
he's
back.
they're going to give him another 325 million, and it's like a dole. Whenever we see you, when a kid comes home, you give him a little small amount and say, yeah, go have fun. So that kind of a thing is being given to him. So the mood, I think the world has had enough of it, and more problems have been created than the outcome of the war is not as per what was visualized and what was expected. The
What was
Russians,
expected, sir? Sorry, but
Sorry?
what was expected? I fail to
No,
understand what the motive was apart
I
from the geopolitical motive of Europe.
no. You see, what was expected, and I think people failed to read the whole thing. In February last year, when the Russians walked in, I say walked in, they met a lot of opposition, and they carried out that strategic retreat to regroup and reorganize themselves after having suffered a lot of casualties. Now, when they suffered a lot of casualties and they retreated to defined defensive lines, which they thought they would like to hold, this was taken by the West as a great amount of victory. And this kind of emboldened them. They thought the Ukrainians were like damn good, not realizing they were damn good, all right. But it was the Russians who kind of
Who were
carried
better?
out this, they carried out that retreat in a manner, and they regrouped.
They were better, yeah. Their
So
plans were better.
so so the initial impression given to the world was the Ukrainians are bloody good fighters, which I think they have. In the way they have fought is commendable. I mean, it's not funny fighting for so long under such circumstances against a powerful enemy. They're doing a great job trying to fight for the country, but the wherewithal doesn't exist. The wherewithal doesn't exist. So that is where the Ukrainians on ground, I'm talking about the soldiers on ground, and my heart goes out to the soldiers on ground on both sides who are fighting this war. And they're fighting a proxy war, as we always
It's
call
terrible.
the Ukraine to be, and they're fighting on somebody else's behalf who's led them to ruins. So the expectation of the West was that the same momentum of regaining territory which the Russians had initially occupied would be carried forward by the Ukrainians, not realizing that that was that regaining took place because the Russians withdrew deliberately. So that was a deliberate withdrawal which took.
Kherson, yeah,
Yeah,
Kherson and all that, yeah. Mm.
yeah. So expectations were that the Ukrainians will continue if we give them the wherewithal. We give them the all the wherewithal and all the equipment. They will be able to push and get onto Crimea and take the land bridge in a very short period of time, which unfortunately did not happen because the Russians went on a defensive and they got time, they were given adequate time to create those defenses. So they did not waste any time. They went upon the defensive and all that, 600-700 miles of defenses that they have constructed in a short period of time is commendable. And that is how they be still holding on. So the West has got disappointed. The Ukrainians have lost it. They have suffered a large amount of manpower, a lot of casualties, 400,000 to 500,000, not funny. And equipment losses are also large. And they continue to take place. As we said, about 575 one day, not not funny again.
Yeah, it's crazy. So, coming to the I want to go back to the ground again. See, now one of the news that has come out that the Ukrainians have started evacuating in Kharkiv and Odessa. They've started pushing out citizens from there. Now, I won't say they would be politely pushing out citizens from there now. What does that mean? Have they got some additional input of attacks, movements, offensives? Because how long do you think the campaign season is still going, sir?
See, this particular season is this Kharkiv area. They had already started evacuating long time back. About 15 odd towns, villages that were
Yeah,
ordered to be evacuated. Or was it 56? I 15 or
yeah,
56?
yeah.
Somewhat. A large amount of villages were ordered to be evacuated. Now, they don't want unnecessary casualties to take place as far as Kharkiv is concerned. They know that the Russians are aiming to get there soonest. And as far as Odessa is concerned, Odessa has been pounded day in, day out. And Odessa is a kind of a favorite destination, holiday destination for the Ukrainians. And they do not want casualties. And that is perhaps why they are evacuating these areas, because these two places are getting pounded very badly. When you pound some area badly, you know, this is preparation of the battlefield. You are making sure that you degrade that area. This is called degradation. So degradation of the intended area of operations takes place before an operation is launched. So all this which is happening are part of degradation ops. And obviously the Ukrainians want less casualties, so they're pulling them out. So what you can construe out of what I'm trying to tell you is that sooner or later there would be massive kind of operations being launched towards taking these areas. How a war takes place? First, you degrade. Now you degrade with air, you degrade with artillery, and now with drones. You degrade the entire wherewithal, the infrastructure. And once that heavy degradation has taken place, that is the time that you go in, the offensive forces go in, so that it is easier for them to capture areas swiftly. So this is part of degradation. But what I have noticed here is the quantum of degradation operations, while it is taking, is high, but it is scattered all over. So that concentrated degradation operations have not yet been carried out, and which will be carried out short of the main offensive whenever it takes place. What I'm trying to say is it hasn't yet started. The degradation in the true spirit has not yet started. When it starts, you'll have missiles, you'll have air, you'll have rockets, RT, they'll all be pounding that area, that intended area of operations. So in the true spirit, the degradation operations haven't commenced as yet. This is all over.
Because it's like this war has to come to an end. What is the Russians waiting for? I mean, I keep wondering
No,
about this.
I keep telling you, the Russians are waiting. They don't want to put in their forces. They do not want to commit their forces. They do not want to commit their manpower. They do not wish to commit their equipment because of a larger war which could erupt. And they're preparing to fight that, a direct confrontation
Would
with
you
NATO.
would you think? I mean, they've got 750,000 people around right now, soldiers around. How much? I mean, they could finish these guys off with what? I don't know. So I mean, I'm just asking you.
No,
It could
they could
be.
if they want to. They could if they want to, but they don't want to. If
Isn't
they
it
want to,
frustrating for the commanders on the ground? I mean, just sitting,
not at
sitting,
all.
sitting, sitting, sitting.
Oh, not at all. They're getting rotated. I mean, they fight 7 days maybe, and then they're pulled out, and then fresh troops go in. So it is. I mean, that's how it is. But yes, he wants to conserve his forces and the Americans and everybody wants him to commit. Let me also tell you.
That's why I think they're pounding him in the wrong places. Crimea, they busted up one submarine. They hit two of his ships. So they're
Yeah,
triggering him. They're triggering to anger him. कि ये
he
आके
won't. The Russians won't, and any worthwhile enemy will not do it. He will do it in the time of his own choosing, in the area of his own time, and area of his own choosing. If you are going to anger him, and if you think that he's going to react and he's going to commit all his forces for this, no, it's not a do or die situation for the Russians as of today. And They are smart. They will not commit the uh, good equipment. They will not commit. Yeah, they'll continue to pound you with artillery. They'll continue to pound you with missiles. But at the same time, they've ramped up their production facilities so that they have adequate,
Supplies. But sir,
supplies.
I mean, Russians are getting damaged. This submarine is not a small thing. That submarine was completely gone. I
All
mean,
right. I mean, that's war, right? One not submarine. So what?
well, okay.
Yeah. I mean, so what? It's not a small army in armed forces. It's a huge. It's meant to fight. It is prepared to fight the NATO forces, and in that they lost one submarine on one ship, and not a big deal.
So, last short comment I want from you with regards to the sighting, and you and I kind of currently hinted on this. कि यार ये after Prigozhin went, Surovikin has a larger role to play in life. And he's tried to kind of change his appearance. दाढ़ी शाड़ी उगा ली है थोड़ी सी. I think he's become a little thinner. He was pretty giant before. थोड़ा सा पतला शतला सा. Uniform has changed. What do you think now the Russians are going to do with this part of it? And Africa mein lateral escalations are okay. You are also going to have these coups which are happening back to back. 3 coups now in Africa. What are the Russians trying to do there, sir?
Simple as that. Africa, they're going to push out the entire Europeans from Africa. Africa will be dominated by the Chinese and by the Russians. End of story. As Slovakian, on behalf of the Russians, on the behalf of the Russian government, will be responsible for all the Wagner forces, and he will deploy them as the government of Russia wishes these forces to be deployed for having a hold on the African soil.
Hmm.
Now, Europe, the Europeans will be moved out, Russians and the Chinese will be there, and that is what is happening. And this could be a kind of a joint venture between Russia and China to have a total control over Africa. No, it all depends on the African Union. It all depends on the African on ECOWAS and all these. Uh, how much of foreign interference, whether be it Russian or Chinese, can they take on, or would they welcome?
I mean, Russians are doing military parades in the Mexican really National Day. They've got
Yes.
a contract to build a military base in Nicaragua. Monroe
So
Doctrine be damned.
the Russians are also expanding their footprint all across. And this one in on Mexican soil, this was something which came out of the blue. I mean, it was a very small contingent,
It was
but then it was
shocker.
there.
Yeah, it
It
was
was
there.
there. So if a small contingent can be a part of the Mexican parade, tomorrow they'll have a joint exercise, Mexicans and the Russians, along the border of the United States, sooner or later, and you can do nothing about it. So things are getting nastier, if I may just put it. Uh, War is being, again, I'm making this statement, war is being promoted and peace is being sidelined.
I mean, it's quite funny because there's just no off ramp that I can see. This thing is just going to go on and on, and it's going to. The point is, and this is something from I was, as we were talking about, that I wanted to tell guys this thing that we are going to now expand the show, and so we'll talk Africa, this, that, ye, wo, idhar, udhar le jaake. So we'll kind of keep it a geopolitical analysis because this war is triggering reactions from all over the world, sir.
Very true.
And somewhere down the line, we need to start understanding these reactions because stuff is moving too fast. Uh,
Yeah, Arctic. again has got activated because Russia stepped out of one of those uh, joint grouping that was there
Agreement. Yeah,
between
yeah.
Finland, Sweden, Denmark, and Russia stepped out of it. And that is one. Second is that the Russians are carrying out military naval drills in the Arctic. So in the that is that Barents Strait, some arrangement was there. So the Russians have stepped out of it. At the same time, they're carrying out their naval exercises there. So things are going to be hotting up in the northern, sea route in the Arctic. So you'll have the Chinese coming in. Uh, let's see where it leads to. Things are
I
going to
mean,
get
it's
complicated.
yeah. You got North Korea playing with
Yeah,
his new
I mean
toys.
we didn't talk. Yeah, we didn't talk North Korea. So you have North Korea, you have Iran, you have Russia, you have China, then you have the BRICS, and then you have the SCO, and then you have AUKUS, and you have G20, and
Quad.
you have G7 and Quad, and all that happening. So I
It's
two E
just
I two U two,
you to
you know,
IMAC.
yeah. So all that is
It's just
happening. So multipolarity is the you know is the buzzword, and this is something that we all need to understand because every state is going to see its own benefits and be part of various groupings.
for me. This is the most interesting thing, sir, because every day you hear, oh, freak. Like yesterday, I heard Saudi Arabia's Prince MBS. He was having an interview with the Fox News, and he said, Israel and our talks are going normal. We are on schedule. My jaw
Yeah,
dropped. I'm like, what? You know, I'm hearing the word Israel out of his mouth.
yeah, yeah. I mean, that is what is there yesterday.
So I mean, it's amazing. Things are just moving so fast. So I guess, sir, we will have to, the way the war is expanding. I think we will have to also expand our this thing, and
Yes,
Thursday
definitely.
night will become geopolitics night rather than
Yeah,
just Ukraine night. There's-
you'll have me reading more and more. So that's good fun. This is
so,
something that I enjoy doing. So
we'll make it a geopolitics night where we'll discuss what's happening in the world. क्या हो रहा है भाई दुनिया में? Where is this godforsaken world order going? So let's do that, guys. I'll get into your questions. Like this video, subscribe, and thank you so much for all the congratulations. We've crossed 60,000 subscribers, sir. Thank you so much,
great.
all of you guys, for following and supporting this particular channel. So please like this video, subscribe if you've not subscribed till now, and you can contribute towards the Dev Talks efforts. Super chats, become a member, or you can contribute directly through the QR code of above. Let's get into it. First one, JVJP, congrats, 60K. You'll be a prominent influencer. Nahi hai, no influencer, sab. It's just earning. Thank you so much, brother. He's got a trick up his sleeve for you, sir. It's gonna come.
Okay.
As usual. ये आपको कुछ ना कुछ challenge देगा आज. And I can see that already. Ishan, thanks so much. Hey, Adi, it would be nice if you make a detailed video on the situation in Nagorno-Karabakh and its geopolitical implications along with Major General, sir. We could do that, sir,
Great.
but any comments at the moment?
No comments, and I haven't really studied in that amount of detail that I would, want to make a comment.
So, Ishan, we will welcome you back next Thursday night when we will do the geopolitics night. So let's see where the world is headed. Mandar, thank you so much. He says, Jai Hind, sir, the Zoker and the US Congress to meet Republicans voice skepticism over further aid. Yeah. Will Zoker
Yeah,
obtain air defense systems training and support?
yeah, he will. He will. They will give him. They will give him these whatever he's asking, uh, because actually the United States has appealed. President Biden has appealed to the. I mean, if you had heard him, he's asked the entire world to support Ukraine as far as air defense equipment is concerned. It's very expensive. So these systems, the more they have, the less damage will take place on Ukrainian soil. So they will give him whatever they can. After all,
Drag out.
he's come. Yeah.
Sorry, sir. After all.
After all, he came begging, so he's got to be given some
Ah,
arms. No.
that I mean, sorry, frag out. Just you had mentioned something about Pakistan one time, so I put a small clip of that online, and I said, "Is Ukraine the same as Pakistan?" But sir, today the way you're describing it, I don't know. You can just remove Zelensky, put Imran Khan, and remove Ukraine and put Pakistan. Looks the same.
Two different stories. Two different stories. Let's not
But the
equate.
basic characteristics are the same.
No
They don't.
characteristics. No, they have been. Uh, the Pakistanis have been led up a gum tree by their own army, and not that there was less amount of money that they had, or they've got the entire wherewithal, but then the corruption is so damn deep rooted in Pakistan, and it's been blatantly taken by the Pakistan army. I mean, the amount of money these guys have made is not funny. So the I mean, it has been so blatant that nothing has been, all the money that has been received, nothing has been put back into the system. That's how it is collapsing. You know,
That's a point.
ISI, you know that the role that they play. You know what? Uh, I mean, again, it's a different story. Pakistanis have not got involved in fighting themselves. Of course, they're fighting the terrorists on their own homeland, whether it is you know on the Afghan border, and of course then they're creating that trouble on our border. That is for relevance. If they did not create all that, that army would not be relevant in Pakistan.
Yeah, of course, of course, of course.
Anyway, and my prediction on Pakistan is their collapse on their own.
Whoop.
We don't have to contribute.
Drag out. Thank you so much for your contribution. He says, "Hi sir, today Russian peacekeepers got killed in Karabakh Azeri attack on Russia. Will result in any involvement there or just diversion? Four chaps got killed
Yeah,
while
but
waiting for that. Yeah,
no, you see, it's more of a diversion, as we stated. It just started and just finished today. So
yeah.
this is these are diversions. These are to keep the Russians engaged all over. So to divert their attention and divert their forces and divert their thinking. So all this is just diversion. Yeah.
KSV Prasad ji, thank you. He says, does the West realize the outcome if Russia really turns aggressive? That's a good question.
It's a good question, KSV. I guess you're writing from Hyderabad. Uh, Now, if Russia goes aggressive, it goes full throttle. It goes full throttle. There is going to be. I mean, Russia is going to be sitting next to Kiev, and the moment they are sitting next to Kiev, that's the end of story, as far as Ukraine is concerned, and as far as this war is concerned. Now, whether they limit themselves within the Ukrainian territory or they go beyond that is the question.
Hmm.
And what I read out of it, the Russians are not wanting to expand this war. That's why they call it a special military operation. Limited. It's a limited operation. It's a limited campaign. It is not to be progressed beyond certain areas. In the very beginning, they said it's a special military operation. They never talked about conquest of Ukraine or destruction of Ukraine. So if they go aggressive, uh, full full throttle, things would be definitely different. And the West realizes that the Russians are not doing it, and the Russians will not do it. As repeatedly am saying, they would like to conserve their forces.
Partha says, excuse me, Americans are already rejoicing at politicians who are talking about not funding Ukraine's war with Russia. Will they do what will they do when they look at funding going to rebuild Ukraine?
Yeah, they're going to be very happy because that's what they're good at, destroying and then rebuilding. So you have all these black water and whatnot. Uh, they already have arrangements with the with Zelensky. They're talking rebuilding. The- So destruction is, I mean, given, and destroy maximum, get maximum destroyed, so that you can rebuild maximum. So it talks of more jobs for the Americans. It talks of for the Europeans, and the money is obviously going to come back. The government of the United States will give them money, or Europe will give money, provide the money, which will be again given to the contractors who are coming to rebuild. So what will the Ukrainians get? They will get buildings, all right. Who will get the money? The Americans will get the money, or the Europeans will get the money. So the money, instead of now from the government, it gets into personal pockets. That's what all that is happening. It's recycling. They believe in circularity,
It's
sustainability.
amazing, sir. The way this Harsh, thank you so much for your contribution. He says, Harsh, sir, please take your question. Oh, yeah, there it is. Major General, sir, hello. Do you think Russians would try again to put their nukes in Cuba or some other South American country or in Africa so that the US and the West would back off?
I won't be surprised. May not be Cuba, but definitely you never find you will find them somewhere very near to the United States, and there'll be another crisis brewing up. And they what they have done in Belarus is just a small this thing. They just put in tactical nuclear weapons. But the moment they put them anywhere near the United States, things would get a little more murkier. Russians, incidentally, have got much more nuclear weapons than the United States, and if they get fingered more, they're going to react in such a manner. Uh, what you're saying may just well come true.
So,
Yeah,
sorry. Zest says around 40,000 NATO troops are taking drills in Germany and the Baltic. Will the war escalate in coming days?
now when you talk of carrying out these drills in Germany and the Baltic states, and primarily these NATO countries, earlier these many forces would not get together. So many NATO troops would not get together and train together. But definitely now what is happening is, like, if Poland comes nearer to Russia, alternatively, if Russia, as the rest of the world fears, decides to go beyond Ukraine and step into other territory, in that situation, uh, well, the war would escalate. And then, keeping that in mind, this kind of training is carrying on. And 40,000 troops is about good 2 to 3 divisions worth. And that's a considerable force. They need to train
So,
for the future, and rightly so.
interesting question this one is, sir. Did the West MIC focus on high profit margin and smart ammo platforms and neglect no margin, dumb ammunition, weakening firepower? Do we risk profit pursuit, skewing defense readiness in growing our privatization?
Absolutely. I mean, this is how it works now. Uh, you know, the profit margins in the defense industry are exceptionally high, and that is why the MIC would always, the military industrial complex, is wanting to push and use those weapons which give them a greater margin. This is business. I mean, you look at them as from a business point of view. What you will want to use, you will want to sell something which has got more margin. Period. Now, as far as who wants to provide dumb ammunition when you can provide smart ammunition, which gives you a higher profit margin. So this is pure business. So military industrial complex, which is composed, uh, in the board, they have a whole lot of these senior officers, ex-army and Air Force and Navy guys like me, who would be sitting on these boards, and that is what they're saying. They're producing all this. As far as we are concerned, our we have embarked on our production as far as India is concerned. Our military industrial complex has just about taken off,
Hmm.
and we are in the process. We have these two corridors which are there: the defense industrial corridor, which is somewhere in Lucknow, in UP, and the other one in Tamil Nadu. So we are also uh, getting into exporting. Firstly, stopping the import. We have a list. I think we have got three or four lists of items which we have stopped import, and we have these two industrial complexes. We have defined what needs to be manufactured, which can be locally manufactured. You have the SIDM in place, uh, the Society of Indian Defense Manufacturers in place. You have the IITs which have focal points, which are doing R&D, and projects are being given to them, etc. So we are taking off, and sooner or later we'll also become profitable, if I may just call it.
So people talk about USA testing their weapons in Ukraine, but there is a
Yeah,
choice that Russia is also testing some weapons of their own because they have firepower to end this war soon. Actually, Putin actually said you haven't seen all our weapons as of now, and he
correct.
actually mentioned this.
He said that I haven't yet started. I mean, you haven't seen what I can do. Now, what you just stated, Gurjot, is very, very right. The USA is testing its weapons in Ukraine, and it is today also they were talking about it, that Ukraine has become the test bed, testing ground for all weapons. Now, that is why they will supply them whatever they want, so that that gets tested. At the same time, they're also studying a lot of Russian, uh,
Weapons, yeah.
weapons, as to the electronic warfare. How does a particular weapon? This is becoming a testing ground. How, and that's smart. And, and let's face facts. I and you today are talking about Ukraine, are also drawing lessons out of it. As far as, if I were in service, I would be talking it in terms of what can I learn out of this. And it's not only the Indian armed forces, it'll be the rest of the world. Everybody is taking out lessons. The Chinese will be watching it very carefully, and how the war is panning out, and where are they going wrong, and what ammunition should have been used, and what, how could it be countered, etc. So this is quite a test bed. It's live. So
He says, I feel Ukraine might turn into another East Germany versus West Germany story. That seems more likely to me along the
yeah,
Dnieper.
that's absolutely. And Dipankar, I absolutely agree with you. At the end of it all, it'll be exactly as what you're just saying. And also, we're talking about the frozen conflict on the Korean model. So that's another model.
So I'm going to take a couple more. So there's some interesting stuff. So I really want you to actually,
Yeah.
take us another about 5-7 minutes more. Cloud and Mountain say maybe Russia and Poland both synchronize their actions.
No, I like this because the clouds and mountains are also synchronizing their actions. The clouds over the mountains. So, my friend, your mind works well uh, in the similar manner of the cloud and mountains. So it's Russia being the cloud, and or Russia being the mountain, and Poland being the cloud in this particular case. Uh, I disagree with you, uh, because Poland and Russia really don't see eye to eye, and they will not synchronize it deliberately, but it may so happen in this particular manner.
The division of Czechoslovakia is what I remember.
Yeah, I
You
know.
take it's just the same feeling. Aditya says, "Are we?" And there we go. Are we sleepwalking into World War III to stop? How to stop this?
We are, unfortunately, as I said, nobody is willing to stop this, and we are all
Yeah.
walking into it. And my statements as far as the UN General Assembly is concerned are related to this.
Yes. Actually, there's a comment which says too much to lose for the war to stop. On the USA bloc side, its credibility versus Russia, its country and government.
Absolutely. I mean, the United States is not. In fact, it's NATO, EU, US. All their credibility is at stake. As
Yeah,
far as Russia is concerned, Russia loses. The government is obviously at stake, and so nothing happens to the country, by the way. But if it loses, it also loses a lot of credibility,
correct, sir.
and
But
then the sanctions would be very very effective and will be even more harsher.
which are currently kind of loosening out. Batraji says Zelensky is increasing the area of conflict. Could it lead to other further escalations of conflict with new countries getting sucked into it? Poland is
Yeah,
one. Which else?
yeah, yeah. Just talked about it. This is precisely what he wants. I mean, he may be a comedian, but to be a comedian, you have to have a lot of intelligence. I mean,
Yeah,
he's trying to expand the conflict. As far as he's concerned, he doesn't care a shit. I mean, he doesn't care a damn about the rest of the world. He's only worried about himself, and he's only worried about causing as much of trouble to Russia as much as he can. If he were interested in Ukrainian lives, this war wouldn't have taken place. End of story.
so
He's not interested in anybody's lives. He's interested in satisfying his ego. You see him walk around. I mean, you look at his body language, arrogance showing all the way. So he's expanding. He don't care a damn. So you imagine Ukrainians being found in Sudan.
Sudan.
Yeah,
I mean, that was a shocker to me, sir. I mean, I was like, "Kar
and
kya hai
it's
bro?"
CNN talking. I'm not talking.
Yeah, Western media. Yes, sir.
Yeah, it's investigation by CNN.
Sir, is a flanking movement from Belarus likely?
When the time comes, yes,
Okay.
that will be synchronized.
Batraji again says, Adiji, this war has become a marathon while the West wanted it to be a 100-meter sprint.
Very true. I mean, it's become a marathon and maybe an ultra marathon. Let's see.
So, Rajesh, she says, is India going to be involved, part of the drills of the Arctic region along with Russia?
Not as of now. Maybe in the future, we've also expressed our interest in Arctic. And Arctic region is an interest. Like in the Antarctic, we have a station, uh,
Hmm.
and these two are considered to be global properties. And anybody and everybody, any country can lay a stake on it. And these are common areas. So, like in Antarctica, we have a station, a regular station, and maybe tomorrow we'll have some stake in Arctic as well. Yeah, we are definitely interested.
Aditya says, if war between Poland and Ukraine happened, will Article 5 activate?
War
That's an
between
interesting question.
Poland, no. That
Because Ukraine, then it's
that's
a
not
bloody.
happening. That's as it is a NATO country getting into Ukraine. So Article 5 will be kind of ignored. Nobody will talk about it. Nobody will talk about it. Which Article 5? Never heard of it.
That's a good question, Aditya. Good observation. And so this
Actually.
last one, I want you to read yourself because this is JB, JP, and Kun who kind of knows Nepali wants to ask you a question in Nepali. So I'd
Hmm.
rather leave this to you before I embarrass myself.
Yeah, I mean, what he's saying is that in Nepalese is what is the involvement of Hunter Biden in the Ukrainian war? I mean, what is the level? This is absolutely, okay, just to cut the story short and make it simple. Hunter Biden had a lot of stake in one of the companies, uh, and that company carried out a lot of corruption, was involved in corruption. And when that corruption came to light, and he had to be put behind bars and all that, he would have got into trouble. So Joe Biden came down, specially flew down and used his influence to bail out his son. So there is a total involvement. President Biden is totally, I mean, this is one of the reasons where impeachment को तैयारी होंदे छ. यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स में impeachment को लागी बाइडेन इट्स बिकॉज ऑफ हंटर बाइडेन उसको कारण ये होने सके and this is going to be the downfall of Biden. Hunter Biden is going to let down his father, and it is because of corruption.
Is
And
Hunter
there are
Biden
many
an
things.
excuse?
Sorry?
Is Hunter Biden an excuse?
Yeah, but then you need an excuse, no? You
Hmm.
can't just remove a president of a country. You need some excuse.
Fantastic, sir. I think I really enjoyed the question answers today, guys. Really good questions. Some of them are really, really interesting. Actually provoked a lot of thoughts with regards to what's happening around the place. But it's amazing that this war has actually lasted out this long, and it's amazing that the Ukrainians are still standing. Um, it's amazing. I mean, it's and the capacity to fight is still there, and the patience of the Russians. I think that is something that I'm really amazed with, sir. They just कोई बात नहीं कोई बात नहीं कोई बात नहीं सबमरीन टूट
Yeah,
गई कोई बात नहीं कोई बात नहीं
you see, it's come to a state wherein the Russians are not hassled. They've prepared a good defensive line. They know nothing's going to happen this particular season. They also, I mean, everybody appreciates the ground situation,
yeah,
reads the ground situation, and sees. I mean, there are a lot of trust you me in professional armies. There's a lot of wargaming which takes place, and the Russians are very good at it. They would have wargamed every scenario. If this happens, this is what we'll do. So contingency plannings, these are part of professional armed forces and which take place. And Russian is a professional army. I mean, Russian army is a professional army. So
indeed.
various contingencies would have been catered for, and it's a wait and watch. They don't want to commit. They don't want to go beyond a point. They don't want to escalate beyond a point. They'll continue to take on all this nonsense which the world is talking about them. And push comes to shove, maybe someday they'll just walk in.
Thank you so much, sir. This was a pretty much an eye opener, and you and I will get in touch with you by the end of this week and structure a geopolitical overview. So, guys, please stay tuned for next week where we will discuss a larger sector of the war. Because since you guys kind of take questions from here and there and here and there, so we are able to actually open out the horizon a little further. It'll be interesting to discuss Ukraine and the geopolitics around it and how things are kind of opening out as far as the world is concerned. Where is there a war? Where is there a dispute? Where is there a coup? And that's, I think, the flavor of the season, right, sir? Coups, Africa,
Absolutely.
har jagah. So thank you so much, sir. Once again, it's always a pleasure and learning experience talking to you. See you next week. Jai Hind.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Have a great week. Enjoy yourselves. Be safe.